a lot of people will ask that. They'll say, okay, like, what is personal branding? Who does it apply to? Because when people hear that phrase personal branding, they often think of things like social media or influencers, or you have to host a podcast or write a book or be a speaker or launch a course or like a membership. We certainly work with a lot of those people, experts and creators, but the way that we define personal branding is much more fundamental than that, is simply the digitization of your reputation. And so people sometimes errantly make the mistake of saying, do I need a personal brand or should I build one? It's like, no, you have one, because it's the same as going, should I build a reputation? Do I need a reputation? It's like, no, you have one. You don't get the choice. The only choice you have is helping to influence it to make it be the one that you want.
And you get to optimize that through so many different ways, which impacts how people feel about you, even a feeling or an opinion they might have about you before they even meet you in person.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it doesn't matter if you're an executive at a company or you're an entrepreneur or you are an expert, somebody who's right in that center of our bullseye of who we work with. You go, all of us are trying to generate awareness for something. We're trying to drive leads for something. We're trying to promote the work that we do at an organization, or maybe get promoted or be an industry leader, or driving leads for our small business, or we might be trying to actually monetize our expertise. The principles, though, that we talk about, they apply universally to those three groups: executives, entrepreneurs, and experts.
Yeah, love it. Take us right back. Who was the first person to believe in you?
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go, but Brand Builders Group started on accident. It actually started out of a crisis. So my wife and I have been business partners since 2006, and we started a sales training company from scratch with two other business partners. And as we grew that company, we took on some investors, and fast forward 12 years, we had 200 team members, 8-figure business, 5,000 clients. And we walked into what we thought was a routine budget meeting one day. And as the company grew from zero to quite large, that term philosophical differences really started to take shape. And my wife and I had some very clear ways that we wanted to move the business, and our partners were going a different way. And the investors fired her. And so she got fired. And they said, today will be your last day. Your services are no longer needed. And that's actually the first line in the new book, because that's where the story began. Well, so we had a non-compete in the sales training space. So we had no plan. We didn't know what we were going to do. So I resigned a few days later, officially. And to the day, like when AJ got fired, this old friend that we had, his name was Lewis Howes, and I had been on his podcast a few years earlier. He literally called us randomly out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him for at least a year. And he said, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to borrow your brain. And I had helped him as a friend with his first book to become a New York Times bestseller. And that was one of the things we help people do, is understand how to write books and things. And then we lost touch. And he said, my business is growing, but I feel pulled in a lot of directions and I don't have a clear strategy. And I feel like I need to borrow your brain. Is there any chance you would help me? And so Lewis came over, because it was like, well, let's look at the calendar, wide open. So we're like, sure. So he flies to Nashville. He comes, sits in our basement. We take him through just a bunch of random exercises and conversations and questions. And he, at the end, said, this is the most powerful 2 days I've ever experienced in business. And he said, this is what you guys were born to do. He said, this is your new company. And we're like, no, this isn't our new business. Like, we don't have a business. Like, we just got out of business. We've been working 80 hours a week for 12 years. Like, we don't have a team. We don't have technology. We don't have a bank account. Like, we have nothing. And he said, that's okay, because I have an audience, and I'm going to have you on my show, and you're going to tell everybody what you did for me. And then we are going to tell them that this is what you do now. And we had over 1,000 people request free calls from our team. And we worked with Lewis for the next 2 years very closely. He's still an active client. But it took him like 6 years, I think, 8 years to go from 0 to 30 million downloads. And in the first 2 years we worked together, he went from 30 million to 500 million downloads. And he exploded. And now today he has over 1 billion podcast downloads. and he's become a very successful celebrity. And it was really because of him. He was the reason that we started the whole business. So I would say, when you ask that question, who believed in us first, I have to point to Lewis and say Brand Builders Group would not be here if it weren't for Lewis Howes.
Incredible. On this show, we often talk about having the belief in someone else. You can, if someone doesn't believe in themselves, you can transfer the belief that you have in that person until they have the momentum to be able to say, yes, now I believe in myself. And it sounds like Lewis was able to do that for you in a slightly different way. It was almost like a transfer of clarity.
It was, and it was bilateral, because he had 17 revenue streams, and that was one of the things that when we work with people, we take them through an exercise called the revenue streams assessment, and we list all of their revenue streams. And he very proudly was like, "I've got 17 revenue streams. Look I've got multiple streams of income." And I remember having to tell him, I said, "Lewis, multiple streams of income is the stupidest piece of advice on the internet today." And there's a lot of stupid advice on the internet, but that one is clearly wrong. I said, we've coached a lot of wealthy people. And if you just use common sense and you look at everybody, I'm talking like nearly 100% of wealthy people did not make their income from multiple streams of income. The way you get rich is by having one amazing stream of income, right? Jeff Bezos got rich from one thing, Amazon. Bill Gates had Microsoft. Jamie Kern-Lima had It Cosmetics. Sarah Blakely, right? She had Spanx. You go athletes, musicians, The Rock. Today, he's got lots of streams of income. But in the beginning, he was a wrestler. In the beginning, Gary Vaynerchuk talked about one thing, wine, on one platform, YouTube. And so the problem is, if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results.